This is a deeper listen from KEXP, the show we talk with musicians about the thoughts and experiences that shape their music. I'm Emily Fox. And today's conversation is with SASAMI. SASAMI Ashworth is a genre-hopping artist whose background is as varied as her music. She grew up in LA and went from studying French horn in college to teaching, then joined the band Cherry Glazer as a guitarist and keyboard player. SASAMI also loves getting involved in the production end of music.
I'm like an analog girly. I made my first record on a Fostex 16 track, and I've always been analog guitar pedals and Tascam 4-track demos, and cut my teeth musically with analog gear.
And has a passion for mycology.
Like mushrooms and slime molds. Essentially, the mycelium is underground all the time, but it's just waiting for enough moisture to kind of fill up these little sponges which make the fruiting bodies, which are the mushrooms that we see.
SASAMI started her solo career in 2019 when she released a laid-back indie singer-songwriter record. Then in 2022, she put out an album that included many tracks that fall into the genre of metal. Now she's making another left turn. She released a pop-leaning album called Blood on the Silver Screen. Steven said kisses and leave me in the rain. I promised myself I never meant to appear again. But whenever I'm lonely and you hold me, I forget all the pain. I know that I've been selfish and I ended it the first time. But maybe if it's different and we listen to the first sign, the warning that we're burning out, baby, we can make it again. I caught up with SASAMI while she was in her new home base of Marin County, California, to hear what gravitated her to make music from so many different genres, and how her family's story of immigration and involvement in unconventional religious communities might have impacted her self-described identity as a weirdo outsider.
Yeah, I kind of feel like we all have those friends who get married to their high school sweetheart and they buy a house and have a baby and kind of stay in town. And then we have those friends that are I'm moving to Taiwan for a summer to teach English. And then I'm moving to Italy to be a barista. And then I'm moving to France to learn how to cook or whatever. I'm kind of more like that creatively. I'm always just getting excited by something new and following my whims and just going full method mode in that direction. So my albums just kind of reflect that. I'm the kind of person that definitely didn't just pick my high school sweetheart and stayed in town. I'm always on the lam, always traveling and just kind of weirdly becoming immersed in a new culture musically. My first record was a lot more subdued and kind of quieter, and I think touring that record, especially when I was opening for other artists, kind of was difficult for me because I was just impatient. I think it comes back to me being a music teacher and kind of feeling my goal is to engage the room. And, at the time it was 25 6-year-olds with tambourines, but that's not that different than a room full of drunk adults, really. It's the same kind of feeling when you know that you've tangibly engaged a room full of people. And I think it was a lot harder when my music was quieter to really feel that way, even though it's your sense on stage is not always really accurate, because sometimes you feel like the crowd isn't into what you're doing, but actually they're just listening really intently. And it's the same thing where 80% of the crowd will be paying attention, but 20% will be drunk and talking. So you're everyone's talking over me. So since the first record was really kind of intimate and really vulnerable, I think that made me want to make a much louder, more aggressive record that I felt kind of more in control. Like I was like, I dare you to try to talk over me and my metal band that I foraged from Vermont. And then in the same way, touring the Squeeze album with my metal band, you know, with like double kick drums and Marshall stack amps and me kind of screaming constantly, it just took a toll on my body, and I was feeling like it was really cathartic for me to kind of process a lot of my more violent, rageful, internal thoughts. But at the end of that, I was like, okay, I think I processed that. I think my body is ready to like not scream every night. And so that kind of pushed me to want to make an album that was much more song based. And so, yeah, a lot of what I do is kind of knowing that I'm going to be touring it for a couple of years and thinking like, what do I want my practice to be for 2 years? How do I want my body to feel for the next 2 years? And I knew that I wanted to make an album of songs that I could dance to and I could like really invite people to sing with me in the process of touring. So that's kind of my hope for this album cycle.
Honey, don't count me out, even when the heaven's down, even in your darkest hour, even when the heart is cracked. Honey, crash into me like a storm into the sea, like bird on a silver screen. We can make it through all that.
I read an interview where you were talking about like I'm not a nepo baby artist. Like I gotta, you know, like I'm a working musician, and I think about, you know, you also kind of grew up in LA. You attended the Los Angeles County High School for the Arts, which was also home to like Phoebe Bridgers, Haim, and Empress of. And I read you also attended like Teen Vogue parties and young Hollywood kind of it events growing up, like kind of around that scene. So growing up in that environment and being LA, you know, and also, you know, now being like an indie artist, you land on kind of this pop genre for this latest album. And I think about, you know, LA being home to like, LA's, I feel like it's a home to pop music, and it's home to so many like songwriters who write for pop musicians. Like it's like the machine out there. I'm just curious, like, did you see more financial opportunities or just marketability when it came to like thinking about this album and it falling into more of that pop realm?
It's so funny because I actually like feel like there's something inside of me that like just always makes the opposite move that I should make if it has anything to do with financial success. So it's like, I actually ironically wrote this album right when I moved to rural Northern California. Like I have to drive like 45 minutes to get to a CVS. So I actually wrote the most LA record right after leaving LA. I was like, once I left LA, I then was like, oh, I actually want to write pop songs. Even though I'm like in like the most folky kind of natural, I basically live in like the hometown vibe of the Grateful Dead is kind of the vibe of where I live. and I would be like going for runs, like listening to Britney Spears in my headphones. I'm like, no one has any idea like the actual soundtrack of what is in my ears, even though I'm like looking at this beautiful oceanside rural landscape. And so, yeah, it's kind of funny that maybe just like having the space of leaving LA actually gave my brain space to process what it's been like to like live in a city and to like kind of be around pop culture for so long, and it was easier for me to synthesize it actually after leaving.
So part of your backstory that I find interesting is that You grew up in a Korean Christian household in a white LA suburb, and your family was part of the Unification Church, which some have described as a cult. But I've read in interviews you said, like even though your parents were very religious, because they experienced, this feeling of doing something that's kind of left of centered, they've been very supportive of like your lifestyle as long as you're doing something that you really believe in. And I'm really curious how you describe one, the church you grew up in, but just how that environment has impacted you, like as an artist and as a person.
Yeah, I mean, it is funny because I feel like so much of being in your 20s and 30s is like, doing therapy and processing your childhood and coming to terms with the things about your childhood that were maybe negative that affected you in certain ways, and coming to terms with that and trying to like find positive things that you can extract from otherwise kind of traumatic experiences. But right now in this moment, I really feel like everyone has their religion. Like, there are kids that are so obsessed with their favorite bands or favorite artists that they would like spend every penny that they make working at the coffee shop on tickets and merch and whatever. And they'll like ditch school. And it's like almost like a religious experience to like be with your music community against all like logic or whatever. And people have that for everything. Like I have mycology and ecology friends who are like completely obsessed with mushrooms and being in the forest, and all they ever want to talk about is that, and it makes them feel whole and makes them have out of body experiences. Like everyone just finds that in different places. And the older I get, I feel less judgmental of where people find that. I just think that it's like amazing, especially in like a society where we're more and more being pulled into our phones and like feeling less and less like grounded and embodied in our bodies. I feel like whatever makes people feel awesome is good, as long as they're not hurting someone else. And that's why I think, because my parents found that religious movement and it gave them so much community, it gave them purpose, it made them feel like spiritually connected to something greater than themselves. Like that's awesome. Like as long as they're okay with me like finding my own path, which they have really been supportive of as I've gotten older, then it kind of just, we all have our own thing, For them, it was getting mass married in Madison Square Garden. For me, it's playing with a metal band.
Yeah. When I was reading the PR around this album, I think you described yourself as like always feeling like a weirdo outsider. And I'm also just like going back into your family history. Like I understand also that your mom's side of the family were Korean, but lived in Japan, which I understand was not a place that was very welcoming to people that weren't of Japanese descent. And so I'm curious, like how you think maybe that experience has shaped your family, but also trickled down to you somehow.
Yeah, I mean, Japan occupied Korea, and so basically everything that anyone owned in Korea was seized by the Japanese government. So a lot of people moved to Japan to try to find opportunity there, and my grandparents were Koreans, ethnic Koreans that lived in Japan. So my mom was born and raised in Japan, but then went to high school in Korea, and then joined a religious movement and then moved to New York when she was 20. So she's so peculiar in the way that she's not of any one culture and kind of picks and chooses what she wants to take from each of those. And I think because I grew up with that as an example of how to kind of straddle different cultures, and I don't know, I'm sure that, in therapy, there's some way to decode how that would be like an influence for me and not feeling like I needed to completely attach to one label or one anything. And I think my mom has always been very like I'm not any of those things. Like I'm my own secret fourth thing. And yeah, exactly. I think that we get these models from our parents so early on, and seeing my mom kind of quickly traverse between these three different cultures really seamlessly always kind of gave me an example of like, well, no one is just one thing. No one has to just be one thing. And, I grew up with a Western dad who made me mix CDs with like the Dire Straits and Fleetwood Mac and John Mayer on it. And my mom would be listening to like classical music and like Japanese city pop. And so I also grew up with like a very mixed musical environment. So everything has always been really mixed in my life.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, the final kicker question I have for you is KEXP, we're all about music discovery. So we would love for you to give us a music recommendation. What's the song that you feel like everyone should hear, a song that you're loving now, or a song that's just like stuck with you along your life?
I grew up listening to Japanese city pop just because my mom was like listening to it and she would sing the songs at karaoke. But I was kind of like curious if there was like a Korean version of that, of like kind of city pop music. So I've been trying to find like Korean city pop-ish music, kind of like, it's like, I guess I would describe it as like kind of disco inspired pop music or something like that. But there is this one, the Wonder Girls, they were like a kind of K-pop group. They have a song called Rewind, which I've been listening to a bunch. I think that's probably from like 2015 or something. It's maybe from like 10 years ago. But yeah, the Wonder Girls, iconic K-pop group.
Well, I've been speaking with SASAMI about her third album, Blood on the Silver Screen, which was released in March. She'll be playing Newbows in Seattle on May 21st and the Chapel in San Francisco on May 25th. Thank you so much for your time today and congratulations on the record.
Thank you.
Such a cancer, I wish I had the answer, baby.
Next time on A Deeper Listen, I'm going to share an essay that I'm calling Why I Went to Las Vegas, Sober and 8 months Pregnant to See Pitbull.
I know you want me, you know I want you. I know you want me, you know I want you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4.
That's next time on A Deeper Listen. Before you go, please subscribe to this podcast, rate it, review it. Those little things go a long way in helping spread the word. You can also share an episode with a friend. A Deeper Listen comes from KEXP, a publicly funded nonprofit radio station. We rely on listener support to do what we do. Think about giving $6 a month to support A Deeper Listen. You can do that at kexp.org/deeper. And thanks for taking A Deeper Listen.